So before I start this and go into my proper little hello and welcome, I need you to know that I sat and recorded this already, sat here for however long it took me to, do my whole review, and I picked up my phone and all that was on it was this. I hadn't recorded, I hadn't turned to, the video section on my phone, just left it on photo, and I was so disheartened when I came to check it. I was so annoyed that I went off for 5 minutes, if not more, got a snack, and just I wasn't best pleased. Let me put it that way. Also, if my thumbnail's rubbish this video, it's because I already returned the library book before sorting out my thumbnail because I'm a professional. So let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the channel, or welcome I suppose if you're new. I'm just gonna get right into the reviews because there are no new updates for the channel, which is gonna be the general gist of things, especially this early on. So let's get right into it. We're going to be looking at Where the World Turns Wild by Nicola Penfold. Basically, as you can sort of tell, with this Six of the Best series, I've gone in almost completely blind. I had the titles, covers, blurbs. That was it. I haven't done any research into the books because I figured that's the best way to do it. And what that means is I don't have things like target demographic, because were I to go into the library or a bookshop, I would know roughly the right age demographic given where it is in a store. If it is for a middle grade reader, or a middle grade early reader, teen, YA, it's a regular, adult fiction. Sorry, I say adult fiction like that because it always feels like it's a little bit saucy. If you say, oh, it's an adult fiction, ooh. But anyway, you would see it in the right place in the shop, or the library or whatever, but given with these books, I have just, been given them in a big brown bag. I don't know where they're from the library. Now, as it turns out, this book is very clearly for a younger reader. I would say middle grade to teen, an older middle grade reader to a teen reader. So I would say maybe, I would say like pre-teen or early teen kind of age range. And it's really clear that this is the case from the opening, because the opening is a bit of an exposition dump. Now, generally, I don't like exposition dumps, but they have their time and place, and in books for younger readers, they work really well. The book is set up right from the outset. You have, here is what is going on in this world that makes it different from the one you're living in. Here are your and then straight into, right, here's your main character, let's get on with it. I just want to get that right out of the way with the review, because if you are not interested in reading books that are for younger, a younger demographic, or you don't know somebody who might be interested in that, whether you have, younger relatives, or even, to be fair, I'm not averse to reading stuff for younger readers because it's a bit easier sometimes, and it's just like, listen, I've got ADHD. Sometimes reading stuff for younger readers is just easier because I don't have to keep on top of as much. But anyway, yeah, if you're not interested in reading things for younger readers, this isn't going to be a book for you. I mean, it's as simple as that. No matter how well it's written, it's just probably not going to be for you. This book is, I would say, near future dystopia kind of thing. Post-apocalyptic. Basically, there were these ticks that carried a disease, and either you were wiped out or you isolated. There are some people that tried to live out in the wilds. These people were often resistant to the disease that the ticks carried, whereas most people were kept inside these isolated cities. Now, the POV first person character is a 13-year-old girl called Juniper. Her and her younger brother are both resistant, and after some issues with their school, they decide that they have to get out of the city they're isolating in, and that's exactly what they do. And much of the book is them trying to get to the place where they believe that their parents are. And it's basically an adventure through sort of forests and mountains and all that kind of thing. Sorry, there's somebody walking past. I'm going to pause and I'll come back once that's all sorted out. Alright, I'm back. It's all sorted out. We're good. We're Gucci. We're fine. So, as you may not be surprised to learn, this was published in 2020, and I would not be surprised if this was also written in 2020. There are a lot of themes of isolation and disease. I mean, it's something we've all been living with for the past 2 years now. We're into year 3. Yay! If the pandemic was a child, it could probably walk and talk by now. It would be in nursery. It's learning the alphabet. Well, actually, it is learning the alphabet, just the fucking Greek one. Anyway, back to it. Think I hit myself a little bit too close to home there. So, in the early stages of this book, I did think at first this was going to be a kind of, well, just let the disease take over, because there is a bit of it that sort of delves into that a little bit. Oh, just let the disease take over and let nature come back, you know, humans are the disease kind of thing. And I was worried it was going to become that, but thankfully it's really, really not. It's not that. And I'm really glad, because, you know, there still is talk of let the disease take over and let it wipe out the human beings and let nature be restored, forgetting that it's the least, you know, it's the most vulnerable in society that do get taken out with that kind of thinking, not the sort of people that can actually make a difference to the state of the planet. Again, there's a lot of climate talk in this as well, and, you know, I say last year. I mean, to be fair, we're in 2020 part 3 anyway, so... I love the life we live in. I love living in interesting times. But obviously, you know, there is a lot of talk about the climate crisis, and that is a constant theme in this. Now, if you're looking for an in-depth, you know, discussion and exploration of any of the things wrong with the current state of the planet, or, you know, the pandemic or anything like that, you're not going to get that in this book, because it is not aimed for adults. It is aimed for kids, and it does do a brilliant job at exploring it for the basic level that a kid can understand, and then possibly, you know, want to learn more. And that's what the books that are aimed for kids like this are generally, you know, that have a message or a moral, are not basic black, white, good, bad. They're aimed at making kids want to know more. You know, it's not a fairy tale at this point, even if there are some fairy tale elements to this book, but that's not necessarily surprising. You know, if you are a kid getting out of the stage of reading things like fairy tales, there's often little elements still lingering on, because that's what you understand. And, you know, Nicola Penfold does that really well. I think her best work is with her characters. I mean, that is the case for a lot of books for any younger reader. Here is your established wider world. It's not necessarily going to be huge. It is about a small, either group of characters or an individual, you know, that you focus on, that you can attach to in some way. You know, even books that do have huge worlds, it's because they get expanded over time. Now, while I've never read them, and I never will for possibly obvious reasons. Harry Potter does this, you know, well, whatever you think of the woman behind them. I'm going to keep my opinions to myself because I haven't got all day. But basically, you know, in book one, there is not a huge world because there doesn't have to be. There is the small glimpse into the human world that, you know, like the muggle world where Harry has grown up, and then he gets transported into a big magic school full of wizards and magic. But frankly, it is the school and Diagon Alley. That's about it. It is not the huge world because it's for 11-year-olds, about the same age as this book, I would say, is aimed at. And then as the kids get older, as in both in the books and reading the books, the world is expanded because you can expect a child to be able to hold on to more. Were Nicola Penfold to expand this book, she doesn't have to, and I would recommend that she doesn't, because not everything has to become a universe. Hello, Hollywood. Not everything has to become a universe, please. But anyway, the point is, she doesn't make... Nope. I was about to say she doesn't need to make this into a universe again. But were she to expand this book into a series, then it would work in that similar sort of way. You know, you continue with these central characters and they would possibly explore more. Perfect. They see more of the world, they expand on the world. That's how that would work. And it would work, and it could work well, but this is contained enough in the right way that you see enough of the world to understand it, that the thing that you are, you know, seeing and watching grow is the characters, and she does that extremely well. For a start, they don't, to me, again, I'm an adult reader, so it is hard to fully get to grasps, you know. Sometimes if it's maybe an older teenager, I'd like to think I'm not that far removed from that and not be able to remember it, but, you know, this is a younger teenager. I would say, yeah, bear in mind it's been 10 years since I was this girl's age, but I would say this doesn't feel patronising. And I would say the same thing of her younger brother, he's called Bear and he's 6. And I don't know if I mentioned it earlier because I can't remember if that was in this recording or the last one, but yes, the kids' names are Juniper Berry and Bear Cub. These are the names you expect in a book like this, and they do make sense because, you know, you have industrial city bad, wild good kind of dynamic, and of course these two kids are our protagonists. These two are the good guys. They're gonna have the wild, natural, nature adjacent kind of names, but it is a little bit like if I were to write a joke about the sort of thing that you see in books like this, these would be the sort of names I would give them. I don't have any real issue with it. I just think it's a little bit funny, to be honest. I think in particular, in terms of growing really attached to the characters, the little brother Bear, she just does such a good job of making him seem so little. I mean, it's really clear that these two are children. She does not do the thing where it's like this child feels like an adult unless you are a young child kind of thing, because, you know, if you were a young reader enjoying this book, you think that 13 is old, and it's like, I remember that too. I remember being tiny and being about, 7 or 8 or whatever, and, the idea of being a teenager is old, and ooh, you're growing up. I'm 23 and I'm not even grown up yet. Still live at home with my mother, so I've got a master's degree and I still live at home with my mother, but it's the state of the economy. I need to get back to where I was. Anyway, small child. Both of them feel like children, but in particular, little Bear, he's 6 years old and he just seems so little, so tiny, and so fragile. There are times where I just felt that, like, thing in my chest when you do read something featuring young protagonists as an older reader, and you just want to scoop them up, look after them and take care of them. And I had that so much with the two of them, but especially with Bear, because he just has like this little voice, and he's so determined to get things right, and just it's so hard to explain, because she does it in terms of a lot of showing rather than telling. It is the way he talks, what he says, and the way he acts of, this is a little boy, this is a little baby boy who just needs to be looked after, he needs to be cared for, and he's just doing his best to do as he's told, and to, you know, make sure that him and his sister are well looked after and doing the right thing. And I just, little baby boy, I think it's clear that, you know, I mean, if I'm wrong, but I feel like I remember seeing it in the back of the author bio that Nicola Penfold is a parent, and I would not be surprised by that if she is a parent of kids who, well, perhaps are around the ages of these two protagonists, because it's clear that she's got some idea beyond a sort of base level younger person, like base level knowing roughly what a young person is like. It feels like a place of, you know, knowing these people kind of thing. And yeah, I just, like I said, it's a great use of the show rather than telling. I mean, in general, there is a lot of telling, a lot more telling than you would see in a book aimed at somebody older, but that's just because, again, I know I'm talking about this a lot, but this is aimed at somebody younger, therefore you can't, when people say, oh, but you can't expect, you know, from a book aimed at a 12-year-old the thing you can at a book aimed for a 30-year-old, that's true, but that's not about quality, that's just about how a story is told. You could tell this kind of story to an older reader, you just couldn't tell it in the same way. And she tells this story the right way for the demographic she's written it for, and, you know, it's a hell of a skill. And, you know, credit to her for using it. That felt really patronising, and that's not what I meant. I didn't mean to be patronising there. My apologies. But, you know, the thing with this for me was, like I said, this was, in terms of, you know, the text itself, this was an easy book to read for me. I mean, you know, the stakes and conflict are high enough to be interesting, but there's nothing so harrowing that younger readers are going to be sort of scarred by it. I had a similar thing when I read The Murderer's Ape. I'm not sure how to pronounce the author's name. I will put it here. There was a similar thing. I mean, that book was much longer, but it was still easy for me to read in terms of how it's written, and the contents have that high enough stakes for interest, low enough, low enough harrowing content kind of thing. Again, you see it in all sorts of books for younger readers. Even in this, there are points where you're like, oh my god, these are children, these might not be okay, but there's that conscious level of, as a younger reader, where you're not necessarily as aware of your own mortality yet, you're going to sit there and think, oh my god, they might die, but you're not necessarily aware of the concept of death enough. Whereas as an adult, you sort of know that they're not going to kill off a 13-year-old protagonist, generally. That's not to say that doesn't happen. That's not to say you don't have, young books aimed at younger readers that don't have death in them, and even death of younger characters. But on the whole, it's not that likely to happen. Mostly because it would be as harrowing to write as it would be to read, I imagine. I don't do a lot of killing of my characters when I write. I could imagine that you would feel that And if you're writing, you do get attached to your characters. Well, I know I always do. And killing them can be hard. Imagine what that's like if you're going to do that for a younger character. I wouldn't want to do it, and I don't imagine that many authors would want to do that either. Now, the thing is, given that this book is not for me, I can't recommend it for other readers like me, who are perhaps, a little bit older, don't read a lot of middle grade stuff, because this is not necessarily about age here, because I'm aware that there are older readers who have to read books aimed at younger audiences and that kind of thing. But, for me, this is not a book I would read again, and nor would I recommend it to people my age. But if you have, younger relatives, or, say younger, sibling or cousin, or if you have kids of your own that are the right sort of age, I think that it would be a good book for them. It genuinely is interesting. I would have really liked this one. I think that's the right way to phrase this. I probably would have really enjoyed this when I was younger. I probably would have read this in late primary school, maybe early secondary. I can't say I did as much reading in secondary as I did in primary, but ADHD burnout, baby. You'd love to see it. Ugh. But yeah, I would have really enjoyed this when I was younger. So if you're looking for something that, if you've got an avid reader in your life that's at that, late primary school, early secondary school age, I can definitely recommend this to them, or recommend that you look into this for them. And like I said, I found it in my local library, so there's always the chance that you can too. Yeah, that's it for that. Next week we have The Broken Window by Jeffrey Deaver. I don't know yet, so no promises. I might also be listening to an audiobook soon. Probably won't be a long review for that, mostly because it's an autobiography. So autobiographies are kind of hard to review for me, because it's like, yep, this is somebody's life, let me review it. And yes, I'm aware it's more the case of how is it, how have they told the story of their life rather than your life's dull. But sorry, but yeah, I'm not going to be doing a 6 of the best next week, just because reading The Broken Window is just a lot. I've got to read a lot of pages a day, and I didn't necessarily read as much as I was expecting to this week, so I'm going to have to do a bit of catching up. So I'm just going to be reading that, and I think that's it for today. I do have a bigger project coming up, but I will probably bring more news for that closer to the time. Keep an eye on my social media or whatever. That felt icky to say. Ugh. Keep an eye on the socials. Follow me. You can see it down below. Anyway, I probably will post about it on Twitter. Not a lot of details, because obviously I want it to mostly be focused on here, but I'm starting to do my research for it now. It's going to be a little bit of a video essay, and that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day, or you have had a wonderful day. I don't know when you're watching this, because you deserve to have a wonderful day. Go and treat yourself. Whatever you're doing, go and have a nice little bath or something, or a little snack. Something nice. Make yourself a cup of tea. Just do something good for yourself. Enjoy your day. Or enjoy tomorrow if you're watching this before you go to bed. Bye-bye now. Right.